You're listening to the Makey Words Podcast.
You're finding out 10 years late. What do you think about that? It's the business model. It's the business model. And we just looked at each other.
So today we're going to talk about Act 4, right?
Where we left off last time.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
kind of. Time before last.
How do we jump into it? Is there a good transition? I guess that it's the first Act album that we worked on as a group.
I was going to say one thing that might be worth mentioning, even if it's just a truncated version of it, just because I think it kind of set how we started doing everything was Casey had coincided with a move, or a recent move.
Oh, yeah.
For you.
Yeah. Moving up to Port Angeles and the opportunity to build our own studio, basically.
Which we really did. We, literally built the walls of that place, installed the electrical, built all the audio boxes, like all by ourselves. I mean, it wasn't just like,
I think it was just you, actually.
What? No,
Yeah.
we were all there. We were all getting painty and stuff,
We were getting
We were.
painty?
I don't know. Yeah, we were getting paint. We were painting walls. We were, putting up drywall.
Yeah, well, first we
kinds of
had
stuff.
to demolish the... what even was that? What was the building before? I know it had a bunch of air compressors in it, or pneumatic
Yeah,
compressors.
I think it was like a small business that made actuators or something like that. I don't know.
Huh. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was the whole shop, and remember it was connected with that spiral staircase that we had to
Oh
rip
man,
out.
that thing was scary as shit.
Yeah. Were you guys there yet?
I don't think so. I don't
Because
remember
there was
that.
like 2 or 3 weeks maybe where it was just maybe Nick, Casey, and I, or maybe even just Casey, Phil, and I don't remember. But yeah, that was gnarly. I think we didn't exactly know how, but it was like, all right, let's just loosen it up. All right, tie it down to something in case it falls, But didn't it
I
just
think-
like there was one final? We took everything out, and then it just wasn't budging, and then your dad just started taking a sawzall to it and cutting through bits, and nothing was moving. And I remember he cut through one final thing, and it just really
Yeah.
came out. It was scary.
It-
But
Once it swung freely, that was when shit got scary.
yeah,
When it looked like he had sawed all of the support, but it was just swinging.
yeah.
For sure.
I don't
Getting
even
that
remember how
down
we
was so fucking difficult. So
had
difficult.
to
Where-
cut it
Where
up
was
into
there a
pieces.
spiral? Where is there a spiral?
In the live
staircase?
room. Actually, pretty
Oh.
much where I'm sitting,
Oh,
there was a spiral staircase.
Yeah,
But anyways, we had this whole studio put together, and like we did end up doing a lot of the work, but also there were professionals who like framed shit out and designed the rooms and stuff like that.
Well, I think part of the reason too, at least to me, was since the studio was still being built, we were set up in the garage, which was kind of a fun little thing to be a legitimate garage band.
yeah,
a
that
legitimate
was
garage band with 2 Apollos.
Yeah, so basically
Pretty
we all,
legit garage band.
yeah, we all set up in the garage for writing sessions and had, a little keyboard station too, because it was just the 5 of us and people going to wherever people needed to go, and some moody lights like you see in the pictures.
But so really quick, going back.
yeah, very good, Rob, very good.
I'm trying.
Very
All right.
So post Act 3, we're at Migrant or Color Spectrum Migrant. What was the initial kind of push into okay, it's time for Act 4? Do you remember that far back?
I remember it all happening at once, specifically it being like this desire to want to do it on a grander scale after doing the symphony in Brno.
Right.
It was like I would really love to work with an orchestra or have a lot more orchestration on these next records, whatever they end up being. but then it was, I think I got contacted by Dave from Awesome Orchestra asking about performing a piece from that symphony. And we were at some rest stop. And it was like, as soon as he asked about that, I was like, and he explained to me what his orchestra was and stuff like that. I was definitely like an opportunist. And it was like, wait a minute, this is like a perfect opportunity. If there's this left of center orchestra that's like more interested in doing things they haven't done before, and like maybe they would want to be a part of this project, wanting to do Act 4 and Act 5 both at the same time, because like those long-winded projects are a lot more enjoyable for me selfishly. But being able to combine all of those things together, that seeming like realistic, is what pushed me over the edge of being like, okay, now I definitely want to do it, because we can do it in this way where we can all get together for an extended period of time, just focus on making these records, and then work
So
with.
you're at a rest stop on tour, or you're on the way up
On
to Port
tour.
Angeles?
On tour.
On tour.
Yeah.
And all right. Yeah. So then that tour ends, and I kind of remember that time too. It seemed really quick. It was like your parents were going up and down for a while, then they finally landed on the place, and you were just like, I'm going
They
up.
were like, yeah, do you want to
Yeah.
stay? There's a second building on our property we have
I
nothing
want to
to
say it
do
was
with.
like a week or two after a tour, where it was like we were home, and then immediately.
No, it was super fast. It was
Yeah.
super fast. Because that was the kind of thing, once my dad made that decision to leave California,
It
as
just
soon as he
all.
knew in his head, and I think Rob was the first one who knew externally.
I still
But
love it so much.
As soon as he knew, every second he spent there was like awful.
Yeah.
Much more awful than the previous few decades. But like he, as soon as he knew it was time to leave, it was like losing his fucking mind staying there. So that once they made that decision and they were like, okay, it's going to be this place, this is what we're going to do to it. And they were like, would you want to come up, and would you want to live in this second house and use it for your guitar shop and for your studio? It's like, yes, I would like to do that very much.
So
yeah.
we all come up. Kind of, I remember it being pretty staggered, and everyone just sort of kind of, we take turns working on the place, and then jamming in the garage. But before we even did that, you sent everyone. I don't even know what you call that, like a treatment, or
just concept materials, I would say. Like,
yeah. And you had
lore.
broken it down to you were like, I'm pretty sure these are the story beats that we're gonna, each one deserves its own song.
Right.
I wish we still had. I'm sure you still got them somewhere, but it'd be interesting to kind of go back and cross and see what did or didn't change.
Our demos, I would say, from like off the top of my head, I want to say we stuck to it like 85% or 90% or something like that between there, and then like pushed and pulled it a little bit while we were working on it.
So am I wrong to say that that we had actually started working on the studio because, as far as Dad and everybody was concerned, by the time we were going to get up there, they were going to be kind of wrapping up the studio build.
Oh, yeah. It was supposed to be done before you guys came out, for sure. Yeah. And it only became the kind of thing where it was like literally getting your tracking done just at the tail end of you guys,
right?
The post, needing to be there. That was not the plan. The plan, I think, originally was that we were just going to record while we wrote. It's like, while we work through a song, and once it's like good, then let's just track that song and move on, which I've never had the opportunity to do, and sounds fucking awesome. Sounds like a great way to just like work through a song emotionally and then be done with it and then move on. Yeah, but we did end up getting to basically spend, like, I want to say at least a month on pre-production, basically just running songs like over and over and over again and perfecting them, and any idea that anybody had, just being like, okay, let's try that, even if it was like begrudgingly. I just remember it was like because writing an album is like a choose your own adventure book,
Yeah.
you know, and like, but we all had our own choose your own
Yeah.
adventure books. But we did everybody's choose your own adventure book. But that's, I think, why those records turned out like so good.
They're
Organic.
meticulous.
For us, like feeling like records that once we were done with them, was like, yeah, this is fucking rad. Like,
Yeah.
we did exactly what we wanted to do. That's great. In a way that I don't think any of the ACT records had done before, and in a way that like Migrant kind of did, but there was something way different about us all kind of doing it on our own.
We wanted to do that with Antimai, and we came close, but then COVID got in the middle of that.
I think
And now, look at us.
I remember too that might have been the first time that it really we sort of broke it down with, hey, Nix, just take a minute with this groove.
Could you just take a fucking minute and work your
like,
groove out so the rest of us can noodle?
I think I just remember several times of the first time really hitting a wall, and then it just being like, hey, you two just figure out what you're doing, be on the same page. We'll be back in 20 or whatever. And we did.
No, it's great.
Was,
we developed a lot of new traditions.
Yeah.
As far as like when we work together, we know there's these like fractalizations of our process. And yeah. It started then for sure. Why don't you guys just go on a rhythm sabbatical?
Well, I remember coming back. I remember coming back the first time, and it was the moon.
Yeah.
But no, I think it was our first real time, other than that one session in Canyon Lake, writing together.
Which that room is also awful to write in. Like, there's a lot of cool sounds, but being in that room with like kind of minimal airflow in Canyon Lake, that room is not an inspiring room.
No, and it's hot. It's so hot.
It's hot,
so
and it's dark.
Hot.
It's really dark. It's just, it sucks it out of you, you know?
Yeah.
But like,
remember the
it's
we were
tough.
like, you know how we're gonna beat this heat? They got these little fans that you can plug into the track right in our area,
dude,
and that'll take care of it. They're like,
couldn't move. Yeah, it did not
It's
move
like
air. It did not move air
on a squirt gun, like the
Yeah,
bottles.
the
You know?
No, dude, it was less
Not
than
even.
that. It was less than that. But anyway, so this was our first since
time.
that one little, which was only like 3 or 4 days or something like that. Or
Yeah, I
it
think
was pretty
less than a week.
fast. Yeah. This was the first time we really got together, and it was just like, we're just gonna write and write and write and write.
You said something though that I think is, I had never really, I guess, quantified it in this way, but you nailed it, and it's a really, really hard thing to do. But we creatively did the thing we set out to do, and it's so rare that happens, for better or worse, because sometimes you aim to do one thing and you end up with something totally different that is actually better. But yeah, like for some reason, and maybe it's because of the bias of having been there or whatever, but the cohesion and the consistency through Acts 4 and 5 are like a memorable accomplishment.
Yeah, for sure.
For me,
I think we were all looking for the same vibes as the Incubus Morning View sessions.
Man, I've been looking for that vibe since that record came out.
That video of them just rolling up to a mansion, being like, what rooms are we gonna pick out? And then setting all their stuff up and surfing. It was like, oh, that's nice.
I've never seen that.
That is the life I want. I just don't want to also be the engineer. Ever.
Right.
I hate engineering at this point. I hate it. And that was also, we were super methodical. Like, we were methodical on Antimai, but I like the tones of Antimai better. But we definitely had a carelessness in the process of making Antimai that was really nice. as far as just like, yeah, just put the mic in front of the amp. I don't know.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
Make
Doesn't
it
matter
fun.
where it is.
There were
Just put
definitely
it in front of the amp. Yeah, surprised me. I don't know. You're gonna put it in front of the amp. You're gonna turn the amp to something, whatever. Let's just get it done. Yeah.
Yeah,
That-
4 and 5 definitely had a lot of tweaking hours.
It
a
also
lot of
just as far as like parts goes, there's a lot of like small accidental. There's a lot of small accidentals and small chromatic changes that happen within the chord progression. So like the guitar parts were also not necessarily super, what's the word? They're not like, super proggy or anything like that, but from
they're
the tone
specific.
to the performance to the way they play with each other, like we were very specific about it. And yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Which
So-
I mean that was kind of a fun thing.
It's like
at least
almost tiring me out to think about it. Think of the amount of work, just the tuning that's involved in making those records. The amount of
At least-
tuning.
at least for me, like once
Guitar
we got
tuning. I'm
towards,
sorry.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
once
I'm sorry.
once we got the structure locked on, and once we kind of had the songs, like we're just about to be recording, or probably some of this was while we were recording, and I'm just misremembering, but it was like during the day we would work as a band, and then since we were recording everything, once we had a well recorded version of a song, we would break out and eat or do whatever we're doing, but then sit with the session and either refine parts if you had one that you were fumbling through, or write parts if you didn't have one at all. I certainly remember several songs of just being in the room like, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know. And then you just have to sit later, and it depends on the
Yeah.
kind of what kind of expressive you are, I think.
So
But,
I don't know if we went over this on the pod because I don't know if I heard it. I think we did in the
Pod. We're in the biz.
We do have one official episode out there, I think.
Do now.
but
Is it? Okay.
but this it just backs up a little bit just to get a little deeper into that story of like we had showed up with the intention of the studio being built. We kind of like I feel like it was really only a moment that we ended up sitting around going, okay, like how much longer are we actually going to need on the studio? We ended up helping out a little bit here and there, but then we kind of forced ourselves into our parents' garage, and it wasn't all that warm in there. It was pretty cold a lot of the time, but we had. Do we have any little like space heaters or anything in there?
I don't remember any of
I
it.
don't think so.
Gear.
But the thing I do remember is we really tricked out the we had
Lighting.
smart bulbs everywhere.
Yeah.
And we really tried to, for each song and kind of just to gain inspiration to we have all of them on, they're all different colors, or we have only a couple on, and they're and playing with moods and scenes and stuff like that. And so the necessity of having to get into the garage and into kind of this uncomfortable space where it was like make the best out of it, and I think we ended up doing exactly that, making it into like this cool little writing zone. But it was
I think it's because we
to the best of
we
our
all
ability.
do want both for ourselves. Like we all want the selfish, I want to be somewhere that like I enjoy being while I write. But I think also we're mindful of each other and how much better it is when everyone is somewhere that they like being. Like if it's uncomfortable and it's ugly, even if you're fine with it, even if I was fine with it because it's like, well, it's utilitarian or whatever, I would still be aware of the fact that like nobody's going to want to create in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
You got to do whatever you can do. And we had no money because whatever money we did have was going straight into the studio. So it was just like, what can we do? And it just became those bulbs. But those bulbs did create, like, they did tie the room together.
Yeah, it
For sure.
Did they
did
not?
a lot for
Yeah.
creating a mood.
Well,
It
even
did, and they still do.
Yeah,
Every
they still
time when
do.
we get together, if we run them, it's usually like day 2 or day 3.
people have hit a
That's
wall.
yeah,
You gotta,
and
you gotta
it's
chill
just
the vibe. You know?
when we have our lazy day, our first
Yeah.
lazy day, and it starts with everyone thinking they're going to be super productive. And then we all just sit there and like we'll jam for like an hour or two, and then it's like I don't feel like doing anything. Do you feel like doing anything? I don't feel like doing anything.
Time
What
to
if
get
everything's
colorful,
purple?
boys.
Well, that's what King of Swords came out of, was just, I think, an insane moment where it was just, oh, fucking don't know what to do, and then
Was
it
it an
just a
insane
madness
moment?
jam.
I
Or
don't
was it
know
just
if it
us
was
having fun?
Yeah, I think we were.
Like,
I don't think we
genuine
were
fun.
coming out of a rut. I think we were just. It was just. Yeah, you might always be in a perpetual state of
I
just being
remember
out of the rut.
struggling quite a bit. No,
Yeah, I
no.
hated being there.
Yeah, I remember hating every moment. No,
That doesn't sound right. I
No,
remember
it's-
hating it.
I was certainly the most nervous I'd ever been for at least like
It's
the
where
first
I
chunk.
feel 100% like the most like myself is in a big room with basically with you guys working on music. That's where I feel like I am myself. But that side of it, like it did get, it's weird. I'm sure we had a lot of like grueling times, but my memory of like the blur of memory of writing everything, jumping back and forth between records and moods and stuff like that. My memory of it all is like super positive.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And like I don't remember, this is weird to say, not that I remember this from any, like, not to throw him under the bus, but if I'm thinking of a weak link during the Migrant recording, right, it would have been Connor, based purely on what was going on in his life. So when I say I don't remember there being like a weak link while we were working through it, and like I just remember all of us kind of doing our absolute best and everybody yelling out ideas and everyone having like their moment where they would just be fucking around on their instrument, and then suddenly that would be like we should chase that down, and then like a half hour later it's a verse or something that we absolutely love. That's
think it's
mostly what
great.
I remember.
I think the strength of Nick in a lot of those moments is when we're like, okay, where can we go from here? And then Nick
Right.
pulls out the theory knowledge. Just
Like,
He
goes,
here's
just
4
rattles off
options.
like 10
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
it's never just 4.
Here's-
It just goes until you pick one.
yeah.
Until you're like, that's the one. I like that one.
Yeah.
There you
Well, you
go.
could also go to there, or you can go here. You could do this. You could do this.
Good.
Well, if you don't like that, then you could just go here. Well, you don't. Well, then you could go here and then here.
Oh,
You
perfect.
can't go there unless you go here first.
Yeah, we could change the
Yeah.
end of it and step down to here so we can go here.
It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
It
it's
it creates some fucking wacky shit sometimes. Like
Stuff we all hate.
no, there's the bridge of it's a squeaky wheel.
It's like,
I just remember that being
A
one
lot
of
of tension.
those Nick moments where it was just, well, we could go here, 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 and we just did all of the options. It felt like it's just
well, I
constantly.
think we developed a reason for each chord change because there's a lot of repetition, but there's a lot of small changes to break the repetition up.
Yeah,
So it was like, okay, since all of these options sound good for turnarounds, let's take all of them and then pick the right times to throw in like this chromatic bit, or to land on that, or to land on its like, to land on the 4 or whatever. Like it was just finding the way to glue all of those options together.
yeah,
Yeah,
pretty-
turnarounds are fun because like there are just so many different options, and I remember there was one. I don't remember what song it was, but you're like, what chords can we do? I'm like, we're gonna do this and that, and I think I ended up shouting off like some ridiculous like 10 chord like turnaround that technically worked, and it kind of sounded kind of cool, but it was definitely not like what we were doing at all. It was actually kind of like hilarious by the time we got through it. Like, yeah, it works.
like,
but
like
this
it's something
is
we tried
not-
out but didn't.
Yeah,
Did it
I
end up using
vaguely
it?
remember this. And
Yeah,
Yeah, everyone's
it's
just
funny.
frantically trying to keep up with the whiteboard, making sure
Yep.
we're all in the same place. Yeah, and then finally kind of nailing it and realizing it wasn't what we wanted at all.
No, I think at a certain point when we tried to nail it, it was because of it being so ridiculous. I don't think we went into it thinking we were going to do a 10 chord turnaround. I think it was just like
No.
a challenge that Nick kind of came up with philosophically. Like
Let him cook.
technically,
Let him cook.
this run of chords does turn around the whole progression if you try it. And it was like, okay, well, let's just try it. Let's just see what that sounds like.
Yeah, I think a lot of it becomes like, you do like a couple chords that get to one chord that's like, that works, but what else could we do? It's like, well, we could go from here to here, but we'd have to do this to get there and then back. And then before you know it, you're like 7 chords deep into this ridiculous. And it's like,
What a
well,
crazy sort of clairvoyance you have, where it's like, well, if we're
turnarounds.
going from here, technically this random chord could be the one before the one we resolve to, but you're going to need to put 9 chords in between there just to get to that one.
I don't know how to get back to it.
Well,
Yeah,
okay.
I don't think any
We
of us-
basically
Ends?
worked through the writing process was super organic. We did it all from a sheet of existing track listing. And I think a couple of times there was like a jam of some kind where we were like, that should be part of what we're doing. And this is what it could be. Those are those deviations I think that you're talking about, Max, where it's like what makes us 85 or 90% adhering to that original track listing. But then we didn't track anything. We didn't actually record anything till it was only like the last.
How
Nick,
long was
'cause you
everyone
did-
here? Was it 2 months?
I want to say like 2 months.
Don't remember. Yeah, that sounds right, but I really don't remember.
And I feel like it was only maybe the last week that Nick was there that we were actually tracking drums in the studio, because then he left, and then I remember Nick Sauce stayed for a little while to do bass,
And Rob stayed.
and
Because Rob
stayed,
got
yeah.
a lot of guitar done. Almost all of his guitar done.
Oh,
Sauce and I
right,
were watching
Rob.
all that
favorite
Twin
memories.
Peaks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
One of my
want
favorite
this again. I just want that again, but I think it would have to be in a different location than here.
Yeah,
I think for us to actually do like a 2
think for
months
you-
together thing at some
Yeah.
point in the future, I think we would have to do it somewhere other than this house.
And I think too, like at least for me, part of the magic of doing that, and this is like, I say at least for me because this is my own thing, but being there for the first time, and that being like, okay, I'm in this new place and we're working here, that feels really good, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, obviously, it's not like we haven't
Yes.
been. Haven't just been there like looking at the ground like I've already been here, but I love a new spot. So like, yeah, I agree. I think if we could all dive into this new thing that we could all enjoy and experience for the first time together to write, I think that's the only way to rival that experience, I guess.
Yeah. It would have to be Mexico.
yes.
Let's do Mexico.
Take me back.
I've never been. I need to go.
Are you writing a song right now? Keep going.
Yeah, what else?
Take me to Mexico. I've never been. I want to go.
I've never been and I want to go. Yeah, what's the next lyric? This is a Jimmy Buffett song.
I was gonna say the same thing.
You-
Happen to have a guitar right here.
No, it has to be. Yeah, actually, for it to really be like Jimmy Buffett or something, one of those yacht rockers, it has to be music that doesn't sound even remotely Mexican, right? It's just
Probably
the
not.
yacht music.
right.
But
Yeah.
it keeps referencing Mexico, but nowhere in it is any sonic tip of the hat towards Mexico.
Yeah, and you got really bad like gringo Spanish in there too.
Every now and then, or like
Yeah.
in the hook, at the end of the hook.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they probably have to get to Mexico by way of boat, you know?
By way of yacht.
rockers.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, they're
They'll
on the
still get to
cruise.
Mexico, but they're doing it by a boat.
I wonder
They're
if
not
somebody
doing it their
could
own way.
build a yacht that runs off of the energy generated by playing rock and roll music.
Elon
what I mean?
Musk, hit me up.
Yeah.
Hit up our link in the comments.
Oh man, sorry. This is another aside, but it is somewhat related. I don't remember what state it is. But there's a state that built a road that charges electric vehicles as you drive in the specific lane for it.
Oh, that's cool.
That's
What?
cool. I
Like
that.
a rail car thing. That's cool.
Yeah. I
Where?
saw that day and I was like, well, that's wild. I don't remember.
Actually,
It's in the
it's like
United
a-
States, surprisingly.
It's like a real
That
life
doesn't seem possible.
the
That's
shit
what I'm
you
saying.
hit in like a racing game that makes you go fast.
Yes.
Nitro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it makes you go faster.
But if it's charging the car, do you
Awesome.
think you could give it more oomph than you normally would? You know?
I don't know. I don't know how car
Does it
batteries work.
overcharge? Is it a turbo lane?
Yeah, if you stay there long enough, you go to space.
Hell
Wow.
That's cool.
That is cool.
Potentially
Wow.
undesired feature.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Feels silly going back to, but I had just a couple things written down.
No. We should go back to it. We had a purpose.
This will take us back, hopefully, unless nobody has one. I have one. Does anybody have a specific, like, really good memory from those? Like, doesn't have to be music specific, but like for me, it's moments when either a song really locked in, or you were tracking a part, or you were working on a part that you didn't like, and it finally came together.
Let me look at the track listing for this album.
My favorite part of all of that was Solicito going through our track listings and writing hit
Yeah,
next to the songs he liked. That
Yeah.
was my favorite memory of that whole process.
hit,
I was
smash, or
predicting-
monies.
I was predicting how much money we could make with each one of those songs. Turns out,
Comes to
not
find
much.
out, you're wrong
Yeah.
about all of them.
I was way off.
I think
was way off.
I feel like that conversation started with us having the kind of like, okay, if there were to be a single, what would it be? And Nick just going through and be like, this song 1, single. Song 2, that could also be a single.
Yeah. I was like, oh my god, we've done it.
Wait.
boys.
Is this a whole album of singles?
It is. Act 4 is a banger. I mean,
What did we
it's
choose
just
for the
crazy.
first? Was it Night on the Town?
That was Old
Yeah,
Haunt.
but that was more of like a anti-single choice, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, then it was
What-
Waves, I believe.
Waves.
After that.
I forget which one is on which record, and I always feel bad when I'm talking to people about it, and it's like, oh, my favorite song on Act 5, it's, oh shit, actually, I don't know. Let me look it up.
For me, it's easy because even though we did them all at
mood.
the same time, the mood is so different. Where it's like, oh, is that a dark as fuck song? It's Act 5. You know,
I mean, I do agree, but yeah, I don't know. I struggle with that.
is it more kind of theatrical and storytelling? It's typically Act 4.
And then
But-
maybe worth mentioning, just because Max, you had touched on it before that, the only time prior that we had all just been in a room writing together was in Canyon Lake, in California, and without looking it up, that would have been 2 years prior, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think from that session we ended up with 3 or 2. Well,
Two
I
that
think
we
had-
used, but like
Right.
3 or 4 total. I wish
Right,
that we
that's all I was
still
getting
had
at.
those other 2.
I
Wish I knew
think
where
I
those
do
were.
somewhere. I think I do
Do
on a
you?
hard drive. I think
Do
so.
you?
I think so.
Well, I would love to hear them because I do remember liking one of them more than one of the ones we kept, but it just
Oh,
not
no
being the
shit.
right thing.
There was
But
one
basically-
that was very like,
Stinky.
no, like a slow, very down tempo, kind of Elvis-y. I have them too. I gotta find them. There's 4,
But-
right? 4 total tracks.
4
we did?
total.
Yeah.
4 total.
Yeah, I don't remember.
This
if
just
it's
makes me
three.
want to get together and write, which I know we're not going to do. I know we're not about to do.
But I guess just for anyone watching that's interested, "The Flame Is Gone" and "The Fire Remains" were the 2 songs that happened to be from this previous session, but that also fit so well together as just
Those
for
2
the
songs.
story, but also as these 2 kind of companion songs that are back to back.
Yeah. Those did
So-
work out great. There was a
Weird album.
couple.
love
There was
those
a couple
songs.
that were bred from demos and like Casey had. You had
A handful at least.
Yeah, Cascade. You had Waves. You had
Wait.
Wait.
There've
Yeah.
been various versions of Wait kicking around for I feel like a few years.
Night on the
yeah,
Town.
No, we
I
had
think we
mo-
did
a
that
lot of A
room.
Night on the Town from
Act
uh,
three.
Oh, from Entitled.
Act 3,
Yep.
and then
I remember that
Blood.
group. Oh yeah, Blood.
Was
or
Blood
a version
after
of
the?
Blood.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
But either way,
That went through quite
We-
a few changes
that
too.
was the first song we worked on, and
Yeah.
nothing felt right.
Was
Yeah.
it?
That was the first song we worked on.
Yeah, we picked it specifically because it was like, oh, this is 6/8.
We thought it was going to be so easy.
Yeah.
So easy to just make into something that we liked, and it was not. Every turn we took was bad. Everything I remember suggesting was bad. Nothing ended up feeling right.
I remember it kind of just felt like, hey, are we just doing Church on the Dime?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Church on the
then-
Dime? I don't know why I said it like that.
Church.
And then I forget what the next song we worked on was, but it was like it went from feeling like, okay, like this is sort of frustrating. I feel uninspired. That was not like a fruitful endeavor working on that song. And then the next thing we worked on, I forget what it was, but was the absolute opposite. It was just like we wrote an entire song in an hour or something like that.
Yeah. It might have been
yeah.
old. Was it Old Haunt?
It might have been Old Haunt.
Because oh yeah, I think you came back and you were like, you had this very specific. You're referencing like Tomahawk, and you're like, hey, you guys know how that Tomahawk record starts with the yuck tuck 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 thing? It was like you just had this specific idea, and I think everyone's kind of like, no, I don't know. And then you did the and we kind of worked on that for a while. I think I remember that being the way we got out of that funk, but yeah.
Man, I don't remember.
I have a really
but I like that.
wonderful memory of I was tracking Sauce, and it was whatever song is right before Cascade that has "Who Am I" at the end.
Yeah, I always forget about that.
Is that
too.
Moon
What is
Awake?
that?
Yes. Yeah. Was tracking him, and then it was sort of like a joke. It was like, oh, hey, what's the next song? And I was like, hey, can you play that in minor? And then you just started kind of trying, and
I remember that.
then
Yeah.
you really dug in. You're like, hold on, I think I could actually figure this out. And then with the tempo ramp, trying to keep up with that, but it was just kind of I remember thinking at first it was silly, and it really locked in, and then, yeah, I don't know, it just
And now
flowed
it's-
so well.
And now it's a hidden reprise that nobody really notices, but it is there. It's nice.
Yeah, that moment was
Yeah,
really fun.
that was fun. I really liked recording a lot of those sort of they're kind of like loungy Latin sort of transitions that we have all over those two albums. I really like those.
There was a couple transitions, Case, didn't you do while we were on the road? I feel like you had a Scarlet, and you were doing some
Maybe.
transitions.
You're saying just some of more like the sound designy stuff?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what those were. Because after we
I don't know.
finished, there was after we finished as a band, did you sit with it and do lyrics first, or did you take it down to San Francisco then?
I took it down
Or-
to San Francisco first.
Yeah.
I did all of the instrumentation. Then because I hadn't worked with Brian yet, it was just like, okay, Casey, you'll bring us your instrumentation.
All
and
in
then-
MIDI?
No,
Like it
sheet
no?
music.
Oh wow.
So I gave Brian my sheet music, and then Brian took my sheet music and prepared parts for the orchestra. And by that, it was basically like his job at first was when I basically showed that I didn't know how to write music, he would fix those moments. So when I would have a part that wasn't going to sound right on flutes because a particular run of notes is in like a troublesome area for them in a certain key, he would make the shift and take that part from the flute, give it to an oboe, and vice versa. And those kinds of things, that was kind
Yeah.
of what he did at first, which, like, I don't want to sell myself short. It's not like he rewrote my parts. It was just his fixes to my ignorance were so thoughtful and so musical that I was like, hey, would you want to do the string arrangement for these two songs? I only have like basic ideas for what I need them to do, and like cues that I need them to hit, and melodies that I want them to play, and I'll give you all that information. But then you can basically have free reign for the rest of it. And he wrote those two songs. He wrote the arrangement for those two songs, and I'm trying to
what
think
two
if
songs
he
were
ended up
those?
writing Waves and Is There Anybody Here? The quartet.
Oh, cool.
Their string
Yeah.
quartet. Both of them.
The only other ones I would maybe think could be in that mix, and I could be totally wrong, but either way, I'm touching on a thing that I wanted to mention, is we didn't have, at least in the room, we didn't have the haves have not, and we didn't have Mr. Usher.
Both of those I wrote the
Right.
arrangements for.
Oh, okay.
But
Strings.
Brian ended up writing a woodwind, like these woodwind flourishes in Mr. Usher. But the haves have not was when I was down there and we were doing a second, I think the second session was pickup songs. I forget which ones we did. The third session was the string quartet. The second session I went back down for, and we tracked 2 songs the first night, and then I went back to the hotel and I wrote the whole arrangement for the haves have not. And then the next morning I brought them their sheet music and printed it out there. So that whole thing was written and arranged and orchestrated and notated the night that we did that, and then I brought it to them the next day. That was like camp year 1 woodwind parts up until 5 a.m. kind of shit. I couldn't believe it, but I just had this idea for what I wanted it to be, and I just kind of chased it down, and I was so inspired. Like every time I can be around them, and it's been years now since I've done it, but like it is a very inspiring thing to be around an orchestra in general, and to also have access to them, and to be ahead in your schedule and know tomorrow there is a block of time that I'll be able to chew up if I want to try and have this orchestra do something else. Mr. Usher is entirely Nick's drums. The arrangement, everything, all of the shit was basically me asking Nick, play jazz and throw fills in anywhere you like. And
Made it very easy for me.
Yes,
I didn't have to remember any.
But it was also, there was just like really basic cadences I gave him of like the basic vocal of da 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 da. You know, like it's such a run of the mill melody and progression, but it gets the job done. But basically, Nick's drumming was entirely around that, and he just did a bunch of takes where he was just putting fills wherever the fuck he wanted. And then I just went through his takes, and I was like, that placement is awesome. I'll grab that fill. And then it was like, okay, now I'll take the horns and I'll make the horns do whatever this fill is. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if
it's like
there's a
Black.
few spots where it's exactly like Making Black, where it was just like, Nick, just go and play drums and I'll make a song out of it.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what the fourth session was, but yeah, we spread that out over a long time. And again, I know I've told a lot of people this. All of that was due to Kevin Pereira for hearing that Equal Vision didn't want to spend money on an orchestra, and then saying, well, then I'll just pay for you guys to do it.
So rad.
I'm trying to think if there were anything like fairly fleshed out ideas, because I'm sure there were plenty of like moments or like 1 part or maybe 2-part jams. But other than initially Sun Light was supposed to be, we wrote a whole band song for it.
We have it.
Are there any but are there anything
There's
are there any
all
other
these
songs
memories? There's that song that it was just like,
yeah.
this doesn't say anything in the story that matters. And so we tossed that song right in the fucking can. There's the one that we tried to make work that was the Maybe I Can Lift My Head Up, that was not didn't feel right at all. It was just suddenly like modern radio rock in the middle of this record.
Fun one.
Yeah, there was Sun, which we turned into Light.
Most Curse of Hands used to go into like a pretty thrashy jam thing.
I
Did it?
remember
Or-
us trying that. I don't
Yeah.
remember us ever being like, "This is what the song is now." But
It
I
was just
I do remember what you're talking about when we had it end up into some like more thrashy up tempo thing.
Yeah.
But that's
But
more
yeah,
like
I don't think we ever did
alternate
track
version.
that. Yeah. You're saying like
Does
a
this
full
not make
song.
anybody want to write a record?
I want to do it right
No,
now.
of course it does.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I can't think if there's another whole song though that we were just like, nah.
No.
And even those, I think like All These Memories was a song that was so bare bones of an idea, and it was very much like I'll fix it in post. Basically,
Yeah.
any of those songs that we wrote that were like, this is kind of a half idea, and I'll just make something of it. Those all got thrown away. Like
The only one was Killer that stuck around, but that changed so drastically.
Blood.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
blood.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That was a half idea that it was like, we'll fix this
Oh, I see
later
what
kind
you're
of thing.
I remember writing lyrics and singing alone, and that being so lonely. Because everything else we did was there was so much camaraderie. And then I remember specifically writing and tracking Moon Awake. And when I was done and I was like, I can't hit that fucking note anymore, I'm gonna have to use one of the takes I already did. I remember just like crying my eyes out when I was done. I was like, just feeling like this is so fucking lonely.
Oh,
Like
man.
there's nobody for me to walk out of a take and be like, was that any good? It's like you
Yeah.
have to ask yourself that question after every take. That is so lonely.
Yeah.
To just be like, was that any good, me? Be like, well, we think nothing you do is good. So
You only find an objective answer years later.
yeah,
like, well,
I don't
I guess I'll
know
listen
if
to that
you
again.
should be asking us.
Yeah.
I feel like you should have put a little money into a buddy to have around. Is anybody here, maybe an augmented reality mirror or something that can trick you into thinking it's someone else? But it was, I don't mean that to despite anybody. I just mean like that really was a particular time of my life where those records, the work we had done together, I was so stoked on. But the finishing process of those records was so grueling because it was alone. And so it just felt like, and it wasn't this way because if we were working at any normal traditional studio, I, as the singer, as the main singer, would be there at the end anyways. It's just we'd have an engineer, we'd have a producer or something like that. But by the nature of what we were doing, it very much was like we were all collectively pushing a boulder uphill. Not even a boulder, but we were all like kicking the same can up a hill. And then at a certain point, it was like, hey, I gotta go. Hey, I gotta go. Hey, I gotta go. Hey, I gotta go. And it's like, okay, all I have to do is kick this can another 50 or 100 feet. Like, it's not that far. I even have to kick it. Compared to where I've come from, I've only got 50 feet left. Like, we just kicked this as a group for 10 miles.
Yeah.
But the last 50 feet to kick it and to have to also make those decisions and be like, I am making the decisions that are the face of these songs. And if I don't make the right ones, or if I don't put like enough care into it, or if I don't do a good enough job of this last piece, I'm going to get in the way of all of the other stuff that we did that's really good. I think that's like a pretty normal feeling to have when you're finishing a record anyways. But those two records, because it was such a large amount of work, and returning to the acts for this band after going off and doing these other things, I knew like those records were going to matter. I think I was also aware of the fact that some people were going to call out that they were a bit of a departure from acts 1 through 3. So I was that much more self-aware of what I was doing. But yeah, the finishing process, that got to me. Is there anything anyone else wants to say about Act 4? We wrote it all together. We put strings on it. I was sad while it was finished. Mike Watts mixed it.
Yep.
The end.
Yeah.
Sounds about right. Sure. But
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yeah.
Chatamoni.
Good night, everyone. I love you.
We just looked at each other, horrified.
Makey words.
They know. My time has come. The algorithm knows.
The Makey Words podcast.
We have fun, okay? We have fun.